Sustainable Futures for Southwark is a collaborative project between Service Futures Lab at London College of Communication and Southwark Council. This project happens at a very exciting time when the local authority is finalising their climate emergency strategy and an action plan, which is a long-term plan of all the actions that they will take to achieve net zero in 2030.
We've made a commitment at Southwark that we are going to be carbon neutral by 2030, but it is an absolutely massive task and it involves every part of the borough. So it's really exciting for us to be collaborating with you and to get your expertise and your ideas in finding ways forward on some of this work.
We believe that the future is not defined, the future cannot be predicted, that we make our own future, and design futures is about co-creating visions of preferable futures that are inclusive, ethical, diverse and sustainable. What did we do in 2020 to achieve this?
So there's going to be a big focus looking at how we reduce our carbon emissions from our buildings, how we can improve active travel, so how we can get people walking and cycling in particular across the borough. We're going to be looking at the circular economy, so how we can get better at reusing and recycling things and producing less waste. We want to really focus as well on biodiversity. And then finally, we also want to promote renewable energy across our borough.
We have to recognise when we're talking about the climate emergency, we're talking to all sorts of different people and people with different priorities and different responsibilities. And that kind of feeds into our focus on social justice.
To curate these conversations and to facilitate them, we make use of diegetic prototypes. They physically represent many different touch points of those services that the students have created. And they take away a lot of the hard work of having to imagine those futures.
We have proposed 8 fictional services that would exist in a carbon neutral Southwark in the near future.
Our concept is called energy independent living, and the idea is to decentralize the production and generation of energy so that council estates can produce their own energy, and they can do that using green sources. The building is still connected to the national grid so that people have that safety net in case they need more energy. But if they learn and adjust their behavior to staying within the quota that is allocated to them, they can just access the free green energy throughout their permanence in the building.
Our future service concept is basically an energy evaluation system, which we call it the Live with Energy. It scores the use of clean energy and the efficiency of the building.
Almost 90% of people thought this concept is really important. They have a right to know these goals, and this ranking will help them to change some small actions.
After we spoke to a few Southwark residents, they said that they actually wish to go greener, but most of the times they do not have the technicians to actually help them because they are not trained. So the service is about upskilling Southwark professionals, especially in building and construction, in green practices.
They can help users who want to reach carbon neutrality upgrade their devices or mechanisms so that they can be more sustainable and take a step towards carbon neutral future.
We are Team Permit Kermit, and our aim is to encourage people to choose greener transportation options in Southwark.
We kind of started with horizon scanning, and we found out that 20% of the carbon emissions that are produced in Southwark are because of travel. When we talked to people, they were interested in choosing sustainable ways to travel, but they just did not know how to do it.
We created these different types of permits, for example, the road travel, for air travel, for exemption, etc.
We want to use our design to make people aware about their carbon footprints and to encourage them to choose a more greener and better options in the Southwark for their transportation.
Southwark coin is a local currency that can be earned by using any kinds of active means of transport. So you could be walking, cycling, scooting, skateboarding, anything. So you could earn Southwark coin with that. And you can use this currency by buying healthy, sustainable products from your local high street.
During COVID times, definitely we are not on the road, on ground completely. So few people we did test it like virtually, and some of them we got a chance to test it out in person, which was great and brilliant. The local shops that we spoke to, and we realized they really liked it because when the council also comes halfway and the people, they really want to see this getting implemented in the next few years.
Our vision is human and non-human coexist in harmony in Southwark of 2030. And we developed an organization named BioWatch, which empower residents to contribute on increasing the biodiversity.
We hope that in the future, those non-human species can be part of our residence, can be part of our life.
The Green Patch is an initiative to empower the local residents in Southwark to grow their own food produce. And we're trying to do this by converting grey abandoned spaces into green sustainable hubs. So this initiative sort of has two goals, you can say. The first one is to democratize the spaces that are available so that you make it easier for people to access these spaces. And the second is to make growing a part of everyone's life.
We kind of first started with breaking down what consumption meant to us, and that kind of evolved over multiple prototypes and iterations, and we came up with something called as incubation gardens, where we try to empower the community, especially the community organizations and community gardens, since they were more open and inclusive spaces.
We want people to be able to, learn new skills, to, start inculcating or developing new habits within their daily lives, or even new business practices to ensure that circularity and climate positive action becomes part of Southwark itself.
Yeah, it's good to have the students doing something in the real world, isn't it? And then they can take that back internally in the university and do more research and thinking of new ideas, or new approaches. But ideas have got to be really from the people. So you've got to work with the people to get what the people want to see, and not to impose kind of ideas that might be nice or quite clever, but may not be beneficial in practice.
One of the many problems with the whole climate change debate and sustainability is it can feel a bit like some do-gooding, as though, and it's a very top-down process. And that's why I think the work that you're doing, the work that Southwark are doing around climate change needs absolutely to be tied in with community. I do think this is something that, we have to take some bold decisions, but it also has to be done taking the creativity of the community.
When we visited the gardens and we spoke to people, the community gardens, we found that things that we were proposing, like circularity classes and how to grow your own food and other things, that these were already happening in the community. But what we were suggesting with our concept was about connecting all these things and connecting them with outside organisations and businesses in the community, and this was very appealing to people.
One of my highlights was actually doing field work. It was the first time we could do field work, and it was just really nice to really interact with people and see their response to the prototypes we have created, and to integrate all the feedback from them to create new prototypes, and just really working with your hands and really designing things.
Whenever I work on sustainability and climate change projects, it's important to look at the fact that these are really big complex problems and they cannot be solved in silos. So for example, we couldn't look at travel and transport just as travel and transport, but had to look at the different systems surrounding it. That was one aspect, and the fact that we addressed like local systems, we addressed public health. It was important to get public health bodies and private bodies together to work together for the public good. So I think it's important to make these connections in the system in the future to start to create small behavior change to achieve the preferable future that we want to.
In the fact that we not only problem solve, but we have to go through that initial first step of problem finding, where we have to identify and then untangle very complex issues. And that process is what allows us to take those initial steps in terms of addressing the climate crisis, both at a local scale and then hopefully as the students train in more global kind of scales.
The biggest challenge for all of us was shifting our mindset from exploring how might we questions to thinking about what if for the future. We're so used to thinking in the present and applying our methodologies and tools to solve current wicked problems and, solve the whole world. But moving between the showroom and fieldwork, we learned how to design for futures that are truly preferable and desirable.
Something that was very unique about this unit was the sense that we are aware of what the fallout from not reaching net carbon zero would be, There are scales of risk and there are scales of harm, but that research has very much been done and is accessible. What the students were tasked with doing was to not define or propose something that was utopian or dystopian, but a preferable future. And there's something very specific and important about that terminology, in that we didn't want to see something that was solely positive or solely negative, but sitting at this juncture of whatever happens by 2030, 40, 50, we're not heading for a good situation. So how can design be used as a tool to kind of reduce the harm as much as possible and design something that is preferable?
One of the most interesting discussions that we've had was to question to what extent are we treating climate emergency as a real emergency, as a real crisis, or whether we should be doing a little bit more. So for example, we all accepted a ban on travel during the COVID outbreaks. However, there is much more resistance if we think of putting a ban in carbon polluting journeys, for example, cars or planes, just because of the climate crisis.
I suppose that the whole way along we've been really clear that if we're going to be successful, we need to engage as many people as possible and as many organisations as possible. We certainly need to harness all of the enthusiasm of young people, their ideas, and we need to be innovative. So working with the LCC seemed like quite a natural collaboration.
For us, this is just the beginning of a longer term collaboration. London College of Communication is based in Southwark, and it just makes sense that we both work together. And the plan is to also include local communities and local businesses to work together to tackle the climate emergency.